Hello and welcome to this rules overview for one of my favorite games, Marvel Champions. What is Marvel Champions? Well, surprisingly enough, you get to play as a champion from the Marvel Universe. The goal of Marvel Champions is to defeat whatever villain you're facing off against before they complete their scheme. And I should say usually that's your goal because there are 28 different villains in this game and some of them break those rules a little bit. But you're going to win typically if you defeat the villain, and you are going to lose if they either complete their scheme or if they defeat all the heroes in play. Let's get down to the table and see how it's played. The first thing you're going to want to do is pick a hero, and every hero comes with a pre-constructed 40 card deck, so that's typically the best way to start out your first time playing. Every hero has a hero card with two different sides. They have their alter ego side over here and their hero side. You will notice some important details on this card. To start with, at the bottom of the card, it says hand size on the bottom left. That tells you how many cards you're going to draw up to because this is a card game where you're playing cards to do most of your actions in the game. Also, you have a starting hit point value of 10. That's also your maximum hit points, the most you can go to. If you'll notice on the hero side, the hit points are the same, but your hand size may be different, and it's important to check out hero by hero. There's also some other important information on this card. If you'll see in the top left, it says recovery. That is basically how many hit points they can recover when they're alter ego side. Once per turn, you're allowed to switch from hero to alter ego or alter ego to hero. When you're in alter ego, that gives the villain time to work on his dastardly scheme because you're not there distracting him. But it also gives you time to recover, and that's represented by this recovery number. That's how many hit points you can gain back by exhausting your hero. Exhausting your hero means turning him 90 degrees. So in this situation, if I was at 7 hit points, I have a recovery of 3, I could exhaust myself and recover all 3. Now if I had been at 8 hit points, I still would have only gone to 10 because again, that is my maximum hit point value. You'll also notice on the bottom, they may have a special power associated with that hero. They have a different special power and different set of statistics on their hero side. Every game you are going to start on your alter ego side, and you are going to draw up to your hand size, in this situation 6 cards. So we're going to draw those 6 cards, and we can keep as many as we want, discarding any cards we don't want and drawing back up to our hand size. Then we are going to get into the game proper. The game is going to alternate between a player phase and a villain phase. You're going to do everything associated with the player phase before you do everything associated with the villain phase. So starting with the first player, who has this marker over here, players are going to take their turns. You are going to pay for cards using resources. Every card has a resource in the lower left. In this case, it's 2 physical. You'll notice those little fist icons in the lower left. That card is worth 2. Now, most cards in the game are only going to be worth 1 resource. And then of course there are special cards like this one that says double the number of resources when generated for playing a justice yellow card. So in this situation that would generate 2 resources if we were using it to pay for Daredevil. Daredevil, you will see in the upper left hand corner, has a resource cost of 4. So in order to pay for Daredevil, we have to spend 4 resources in cards. So in this situation, we could play Daredevil if we use Power of Justice, because it is a Justice card. It counts as 2 resources, and we can use his Strength card, which always counts as 2 resources, to pay for Daredevil, which costs 4. The next thing you can do is trigger actions, and again, you don't have to do this in this order. These can be done in any order. So triggering actions, some cards like this surveillance team here has an action you'll see at the bottom. Don't worry about what all that stuff means, but just know that is another option, is to do actions on cards. Then you can use your basic attack or thwart or recovery powers. So what attacking does, well, that's how you defeat the enemy. If I exhaust my character, I can use any of these basic stats here. The attack statistic removes damage from the enemy. So if you notice, we're looking at the villain card here. Remember, our goal is to defeat them. Now every villain has 2 stages, stage 1 and 2 in a standard game of Marvel Champions. If you look at the bottom of Rhino, he also has a hit point value. It says 14 and then there's a little player symbol. That means 14 hit points per player. Because we were playing a solo game here, we are going to only have 14 hit points. If I chose to attack with Spider-Man, who has an attack value of 2, we could remove 2 damage from Rhino. So that is another option. So again, you could play cards from your hand, you could trigger actions, you could change your form, limit once per round, you could use your basic powers, and you can end your turn. So those are all your options. That's literally all you're going to do over and over until you either beat the villain or the villain beats you by completing his scheme. Then, at the end of the turn, after all players have finished, you simultaneously draw up to your hand size. But actually, before that, you can discard any number of cards from your hand. So if you had 1 or 2 cards left over, you could discard them. If you don't, though, you don't draw 5 new cards, or whatever your hand size is, new cards. You only draw up to your hand size. So if I kept 2 cards, I would draw 3 cards to get up to that hand size of 5. Then, each player readies each of their exhausted cards. So if I had exhausted a card, if I had exhausted Surveillance Team, all of that would come unexhausted at this point. Let's talk quickly about allies. Allies can do similar things to you. They can thwart, they can attack just like you. We haven't gotten into thwarting, but let's talk about that. So the villain is going to have a main scheme, and that's the major way they're going to win the game. Sometimes there are multiple stages, but this villain only has one stage here. It says if the stage is completed, the players lose the game. So how do we slow the villain down from doing their scheme? That's what we do with thwarting. If you look at our thwart number, we have a thwart number and our allies have a thwart number. Allies work just like us. I could exhaust Daredevil to attack the villain, and that would just do 2 damage as we had done earlier. Or I could exhaust him or Spider-Man to thwart. Thwarting, you look at that thwart number, which on Daredevil is 2, and thwarting means you can remove threat from a scheme. There are side schemes as well, which might come into play. You can remove from either any of the side schemes or the main scheme. The difference is when you attack with an ally, you'll notice there's a little star under their attack that we don't have under our attack, and a star under their thwart. That means they're going to take damage as they attack. And you'll notice there's a little 3 on the right side of the card, right under the picture. That is the life of Daredevil. So after you attack or thwart with Daredevil, you would put a damage token on them. Once Daredevil has 3 damage tokens on them, then Daredevil is removed. So allies come to help you, but they're there temporarily. They are not there for the long run typically. And now we go on to the villain phase. So the villain phase has 5 main parts. First thing you're going to do is you're going to place threat on the main scheme. Now there's a 0 on the bottom, which means the scheme starts with 0 at the beginning of the game, but you'll notice a +1 per player here, which means it's going to go up by 1 per player every single round throughout the game. And again, once this is completed, the players lose. The first thing we did is add threat to the main scheme. Now the villain activates, and they have an attack and a scheme as well. Ours is a thwart, theirs is a scheme, because they are going to add to the threat on the scheme, or they're going to attack us. Now, if you're in hero form, they're going to attack you. To resolve an attack, all you do is look at their attack number, and players have a choice at this point. They can either defend with their character, they can defend with an ally, or they can let it go undefended. Let's talk about all 3 options. First, let's pretend we did an undefended attack. All these attacks resolve exactly the same. The first thing you do is look at their attack number, then you flip up a card, which is called a boost card. You ignore 90% of what's on this card and just look in the lower right corner over here and see how many boost icons are there. Every time the villain attacks or schemes, you're going to do the same thing, and it's called boosting the attack. So you will notice there are 2 icons there. So he's going to attack for 2 plus 1 for each boost icon, which would be 2 more, for a total of 4 damage. Now again, we chose not to defend, so we're going to take all 4 damage. Let's say instead we decided to defend ourselves. Remember, we just unexhausted. We don't unexhaust again till the end of the player phase. So if we do this, we are not going to be able to attack or thwart on our turn unless we have special cards to fix that. But you'll notice Spider-Man's defense is 3. So if I'd been attacked for 4 and had my defense of 3 here, I would have taken 1 damage. The final thing I could have chosen to do is block with one of my allies. If you block with an ally, they don't have a defense value, so they're just going to take all the damage that comes in. In this situation, they would take all 4 damage. So to block with a ally, you do have to exhaust them, so again, they wouldn't be able to attack on their turn. In this situation, Daredevil has 2 life left, and he's going to take 4 more damage here, for a total of 5 damage on Daredevil. Well, Daredevil only has 3 life, so that ally is defeated. They go into your discard pile. They will be shuffled back into your deck later. Then you discard that boost card. And I said there's only 3 options, but there's actually another option as well, because your friends can block for you as well. So when you're playing a multiplayer game, you can defend either with your own hero or with your ally. Now it works just the same as if you were defending for yourself. So that attack is basically redirected, but you do have to decide that before the attack happens, just like any defensive action. So that is the second thing they're going to do. if I had been on my alter ego side, instead of attacking me, they would have schemed on the main scheme. It's resolved exactly the same. So you look at the scheme number, you flip over a boost card. This one has 0 boost icons. So in this situation, you would scheme for 1 with no boost, and we just add 1 threat to the main scheme. There's no way to defend that or anything else. You just resolve that number. Third thing you do is you deal an encounter card to each player. So from that same exact deck, the next step, step 4, is each player reveals and resolves their encounter card player by player. So now you're looking at the rest of this card. And sometimes it says when revealed, you'll just do what it says when it's revealed. Sometimes, well, a lot of times it says when revealed. Sometimes you have a minion though, and that minion will just come in front of you, but they also may have when revealed effects that you'll have to deal with. Once every player's resolved all their encounter cards, you go to the last step of the villain phase, which is you pass the first player token and you end the round. I haven't covered every single rule, but that's enough to get you started. If you want to see playthrough videos, we do have that on our One Stop Co-op Shop stream channel, and I hope you enjoy playing one of my favorite games, Marvel Champions.